The following podcast is intended only for listeners who are intent on growing the business. Welcome to Innovate Marketing, where we are bringing you interviews with the brands, the influencers, and the nonprofits that are making waves and growing business. We are brought to you by MyPodcast.Media. MyPodcast.Media produces high-quality podcasts that authentically connect you to your ideal audience. And now, I'd like to introduce you to your host for Innovate Marketing, Sherry Peak. Well, hey, it's Shawn P Neal sitting in for Sherry Peak, who is on holiday, much-deserved holiday right now. So I thought we'd do something a little bit different. Boss is out of town, and she has left me at the controls. So this week, I wanted to talk to you a little bit about approaching the podcasting world for brands, influencers, and nonprofits in 2023. We are looking at what does the next phase of podcast production look like? And we are going into the future with this. And here's one thing I can tell you. Spatial audio is in. Spatial audio is becoming more and more popular. Now, if you're not familiar with spatial audio, I'm going to give you a quick rundown. Think about the 5.1, 7.1 surround sound systems, okay? In a theater, maybe a home theater, what we do with those is we surround ourselves with speakers, usually a left and a right in front of us, a center speaker in front of us, maybe a left and a right in the back, and then a subwoofer to give us that, low rattle and, the thunder as it hits. And then the sound designers create a sound effect that maybe makes a car sound like it starts up to our left side and then it zooms around us and speeds off into the distance on our right or something like that. And we do that because we have all these speakers placed around us and we can kind of, move the sound through those different speakers to give that effect. Spatial audio is a technology that has become more relevant in the marketplace and especially in the gaming world because it only requires two speakers, headphones or earbuds that are specifically designed to receive spatial audio signal. And spatial audio, the really interesting thing about it is with these two speakers, it can create the illusion of being completely surrounded by sound, just like we are in our real life. So if you imagine being in a room and listening to two people having a conversation, and maybe you turn your head to the left to look at the person on your left, if you think about the way that sounds, and I know that, we're not always being self-aware of what that might sound like, but think about that for a moment. That's what spatial audio does. It gives us that real feeling that when I turn my head to the left, while I've got these earbuds, these spatial audio earbuds in, I'm actually feeling like I hear it from that angle. I feel like I can hear it above me if I look up. I can hear it in the room just like I would if I were there. Now, just imagine that if you take that technology into your interview-based B2B podcast, how much more engaging and immersive that would be for your audience. Imagine sitting with your guest. And by the way, as brands and nonprofits, I'm imagining that the people you're inviting to your podcast are probably people you want to do business with, right? They're the people that you're hoping to connect with and build a relationship with. And so imagine doing this interview with them and then turning around on the other side and saying, I can't wait for you to hear this because it really is going to sound like you're there when you're listening to this. And imagine their surprise and happiness to share what you have created together to all of their listeners and followers and friends and family. So this spatial audio, if you simply do nothing more with it than take and put it into the technology, into the voices that people hear on your podcast, will drastically improve the output quality of what you're giving your listeners. And that's huge because right now it's estimated that we have 450 million podcast listeners worldwide. So that's a huge market. But that also means that there are a lot of podcasts out there as well serving that market. And we want yours to be different. We want it to be unique. We want it to be immersive. And by the way, when I say that, I don't want it to sound like your podcast should be the only podcast that people listen to if they like the topic you talk about. Not true. But think about it this way. If they like the topic you talk about, your podcast should definitely be one of the podcasts that they listen to. So the goal is not to be the only. It is to be one of the only that they listen to. It is to be part of their repertoire of podcasts that when they tune in each week or each month, yours is the one they come to. So give them an experience. Stand out above the rest, because that's what's going to happen. That can be the deciding factor between someone sticking around to listen to your next episode or someone moving on and finding something different. Think about that. The other thing I would love for you to think about, if you've considered starting a podcast, interview is not the only way to do this. One of the other ways that you can do this is through a narrative style of podcasting. Now, I'm not going to go into a whole lot of that here, but I'll just give you a quick overview. Let's say you want to, each week or each month, you want to go into detail with someone or a business that you feel is doing some exceptional work in the industry. And you've seen them, maybe your criteria for finding a guest is it's got to be, a company that has accomplished something in Q1, Q2, Q3, whatever, and they had barriers to overcome and you saw them overcome it, and now they are on the other side of that. And you want to really highlight how they did that, get the real questions that your audience wants to hear out there, and you want to entertain. So perhaps you could do that in a more narrative form of podcasting, where you have multiple interviews with 2 or 3 people from that company. And then you take the clips from those interviews and you weave those together with you as a narrator telling some of the story and helping to guide the story along. And then add that spatial audio component so that when they talk about running out of their office building, catching an Uber and going 10 minutes away to another office building to have a meeting for the pitch of the lifetime that brought in a $10 million contract, but we actually hear them running down the stairs. We hear the hustle of the traffic moving. We hear the car door open. We hear them get out as they're telling it. What you've just done is you've taken your B2B podcast, which may have, in an interview style, may have just been someone telling you that, and you've turned it into a soundscape. You've taken your listener for the exact same amount of time on an emotional journey, and you've taken them there using audio. I'm going to leave it at that because I think that's enough to really digest for now. But anyway, if you're listening to this, I would love to get your comments. You can always email us at hello@mypodcast.media if you want to drop some comments on an email, or feel free to comment wherever you're listening to this at. In the meantime, I want to thank you for tuning in and remind you that next week, Sherry Peak will be back with an interview with Glenn Lundy. That's going to be one we're sticking around for. So I hope that you will come back soon, and we'll talk to you real soon. Happy New Year, everyone, 2023. That brings us to the close of this edition of Innovate Marketing. We're glad you tuned in. Innovate Marketing is brought to you by MyPodcast.Media. MyPodcast.Media produces podcasts for brands, influencers, and nonprofits. Find us online at MyPodcast.Media. Your producer for Innovate Marketing is Beth Freed. Executive producer, Shawn Neal. And your host is Sherry Peak. We'll see you next time. Be sure to tune in.